or like anything that's cardiovascular or physical, I think that could be extended um, until the expiration of your, brain, essentially, or your cognitive decline. Let's see. Is there anything I should talk about? Anti-drugging. Yeah, I think there's a lot of human trials going on. I think there's like limitations in terms of ethics, which is really holding us back. So I do also see that this is a less viable option. A little bit more viable is via advanced AI technology. I think with nanobots, like microscopic AI bots, which is probably a little bit on the unethical side because of the security and like control and stuff like that and hacking. I think you can do micro repairs on a cellular level, where you can repair tissues and diffuse um, certain chemicals and optimize biological functions. And this is also going off um, like very closely monitoring biomarkers and making sure you have imaging, making sure there isn't like biological changes that are significant to your health that can allow you to live forever. I think this is also very viable. I think technology definitely grows faster than like medical research and like drugs. And so that's a little bit more possible and um, closer to coming to fruition. I think it's a little bit, yeah, it's definitely a little bit more ethical and less limitations in terms of advancement. I think technology, I mean, we still don't, I think we have less precautionary measures when it comes to technology. So this is definitely more viable. And so, kind of like going to my final, most realistic interpretation of cheating death is time dilation. So I've been thinking about this a lot, but I think as we transition into more like digital world and more VR and meta world, I think time dilation would be the best way to really extend our lifespan, even with shorter, like actualized shorter life. I think the reality is that like there's going to be economic decline, and probably like it's gonna translate or it's gonna trickle down to our physical lives. I think like for example like people talk about economic crises and stuff like that, and like um, reduced, like for example like um, poor environmental conditions, for example like air quality, could significantly reduce our lifespan. But what I see is that, let's just say, because of that or any environmental factor, it's you can only live 50 years, which is, or the average lifespan is 50 years, which is significant decline from 80. But I think we can, with time dilation, we could um, perceptually live way longer than that. So, for example, like I think about like drugs like psychedelics, where like DMT, where you can dilate time and perceivable time, which with VR and meta world, you can simulate, you know, many years within the matter of hours. I think it's going to be very feasible within the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Within my lifespan, I think that's going to be very possible. And I think this is far more realistic than chironics, like the freezing bodies and like genetic engineering and stuff like that. But I think the complexity of that, like biological um, altercations and changes and um, is not only complicated, but it requires us to have a paradigm shift in terms of medical research and to lift like ethics. And I think that's the biggest limitation. So unless that happens, I think that's near impossible to get to. So people who are freezing their bodies, I think that they just paid money to kill themselves pretty much because it's never going to happen. As a society, I think there's zero economic incentive to revive them back. There's going to be more ethical concerns and limitations, so it's less viable. If anything, it would be like maybe one person for scientific researches, if that is allowed in, given like certain conditions that like because they are frozen that they're technically considered dead, and maybe with like um, like a consent form or some kind of like mediating factor, there might be an attempt to do it for terms of like scientific research, but I don't think it would actually be feasible with those limitations. And it really just pushes off. It doesn't really solve the issue. It just kind of pushes it off for like hope, and it's just not a very good way to approach. Um, but yeah, I think time dilation is definitely the most significant way that it's going to be cheated. In terms of like, yeah, I think that's definitely the path that as a civilization and like as like a human race, I think that's the direction that we're going to be headed. I think it has like room for um, mediating forces, and also it could solve a lot of economic issues, environmental issues. It could address like resources, and I think it's very futuristic, and I can already see like um, our technology advancing and headed towards that direction. If you think about like VR and stuff, it's already been implemented in entertainment, and it's definitely most viable. And I mean, conceptually, like you could probably live forever, essentially, because you can dilate time to an extent where you can simulate um, multiple years, life like lifetimes almost within like not within an hour, and so like that's definitely the most viable option. And with I can imagine like yeah, but I can't imagine like what would be the purpose of living that long, at that future. If we advance that quickly and we advance to that point, like what is the point of like what would you even do like if AI just you know we live in like a human centered AI supported world where like it does everything for us essentially. Like what is there left? Like I think one of the videos I'm going to be talking about like how the only purpose of um like only jobs that are going to be left for the average or majority of the demographic is going to be um for experiments, because like eventually the only thing that's going to be left is how can we expand our medical and clinical knowledge is through experimentation and mass studies and experimentation and understanding our biological processes. And AI can't replicate that, so that would be the only like viable job. And so besides that, like I don't see um like the link between that. I think that would be a good way to dilate time and to extend lifespan, but what are you gonna even do with that lifespan? It's just gonna be like brain rotting and like just maxing out your dopamine, or like there definitely has to be some kind of like paradigm shift in terms of that. But yeah, and also like if that's the only job that's viable, like I don't see. So yeah, I'm a little bit like confused, I guess, for the lack of better words. Like I don't see how I don't see everything fitting together. I think there definitely. I mean, even now, I believe that like there's some kind of um, fabricated reality in terms of like how people you know, are kind of taught or conditioned to um, believe in some kind of in some reality or alter reality. But I think definitely there's going to be a lot of propaganda, or not propaganda, but illusionment in how society is and how is it functioning. I think there's definitely going to be a more dissonance than now, where people actually believe that you need to follow a certain path of life, and they sell you a certain they market a certain life trajectory, and how you have to like go to school and then get a job, and how that's the only way of life. You have to work until 60 years, or you're 60 and then you die, and you have this 10 years of retirement, I think. there's going to be even more delusional um, marketing where like gonna be like, oh, you get into the AI world and you get to you know dopamine max and have the most pleasure and most fun and stuff like that. But I don't see how we're gonna get there. So it's very interesting.